Welcome back, everyone. Glad you could join me here today, episode 2231 of the Cabral Concept. All the show notes, all the takeaways, all the research citations will be at stephencabral.com/2231 if you'd like to follow along. And I'm excited to bring you today's show because I've been waiting to do this one for a while. If you've been following the show, you know that I've detailed the Mediterranean diet, the offshoot, which is called the Nordic diet, and a few of the others over the years. I've also shared with you why, and I'll continue on today's show, it is the only proven anti-cancer diet. It has over 5,000 citations and I should say studies just on PubMed alone. And it's truly been shown to be, if not the healthiest diet in the world, absolutely up there, tied with whatever has been, shared back and forth with the healthiest diet. And I don't believe that there is any diet, if you just kind of take it in its totality, that is healthier than the Mediterranean diet. Meaning that the only other diets that have been shown to be kind of close to as healthy for decreasing all-cause mortality, cancer, and other overall longevity-based factors would be offshoots of the Mediterranean diet, meaning that there are other diets that are being shown to be quite healthy as well. But as you see me walk you through this diet here today, you'll begin to understand that they're really just variations of a Mediterranean diet, maybe with like one or two other foods added. So that's really what we're talking about here today. I mean, I always tell people, that's the thing, is that I do stay open, and I also believe that diet is nuanced, meaning that what I share with you here today, some people won't be able to eat certain of those foods, at least in this moment in time, and maybe until they fix their gut, rebalance their gut. Some people need maybe a little bit more protein than others. But what we can do is we can use a framework of a diet, and that's really what we're missing right now. So that's why I don't put down any other diet. I don't try to disparage any other diet. But what I tell people is that if you're on a high protein diet right now and you're really just eating meat and proteins, I get it if you're doing that because it's getting rid of a lot of your autoimmune issues, skin issues, which can be autoimmune as well, and other. But you have to understand is that there's always a root cause to that. And so what you're doing is you're sacrificing long-term health and longevity, most likely for short-term relief of symptoms. And that's basically conventional medicine in a nutshell. So what I try to do is just simply help people. I don't own the Mediterranean diet. I don't own any of these foods that I'm going to share with you here today, right? I don't have any stock in any of these foods. So what I'm trying to do is simply share with people that there is an overall best human nutrition diet. There really is. And then what you can do is you can manipulate the macros a bit based on whether you gain weight more easily or lose weight more easily, and whether you're more active or not as active. And if you have more tissue breakdown, meaning you're more active, or you're more of a catabolic body type, okay, you might add a little bit more protein, but it's still within the same framework. And that's really what we need to look at, is because it's really, again, this is scientifically proven. This is really clean on what works. And so I just want to share with you just a couple stats. I've already talked about the Mediterranean diet here before. I'm going to modify it here today, which I think we can make it better. I really do. And I'll share with you why, because I know that's a fairly bold statement. As I've said before, over 5,000 PubMed studies alone on PubMed. And I think that's pretty impressive, pointing towards that. It is by far and away what we know to be the only anti-cancer diet. Other anti-cancer diets all share the same framework as the Mediterranean diet, which I will get to. And one of the reasons, I'll share with you, is that whenever you have a diet plan such as the Mediterranean diet that decreases main all-cause mortality. So what's all-cause mortality? That means the main reasons that people die from at a younger age than they should, meaning not from quote unquote old age, right? So what are they dying from? Well, I've gone through this before, but their top 4 causes of mortality are heart disease, right? So anything to do with your heart. And then the second one would be stroke or high blood pressure. The third one is type 2 diabetes. And the fourth one, or not just type 2 diabetes, but diabetes in general, but for the most part, it's type 2 diabetes. And then the fourth one is going to be cancer. And when you look at all of these, so if we look at, let's just say heart disease, blood pressure, stroke, diabetes, cancer, we're looking at an average about 1 in 3 people right now, which is pretty wild, right? I mean, that's an insane number. If you take, let's just say it's, somewhere around 200 million adults in the United States. It's not that exact number, but close enough, right? What are we looking at? We're looking at about 70 million people right? 70 million people. Is that the data on that? Yeah, that's for each one of these. But we know that it's much higher that all people have these, but it's just not all people have all 4 of these. But that's the amazing stat, that each one of these is going to have some part to that. And a lot of it revolves around nutrition. It really does. I think on last week's or just 2 weeks ago's podcast, I did a podcast, episode 2217, and it was, is this why most people are unwell and unhappy? I do hope that you listen to that show or that you've already checked it out. And I will link up all my previous Mediterranean diet shows here today, including the one on the Nordic diet, so you can see a variation on it. I think it's important to really go deep on topics like this, because I don't believe that there's anything really more important than your health. I just don't. I don't understand how that it could be. And if we say, well, the most important thing is our health, because that's what gives us our energy and our mood and our zest for life and our vitality and, of course, our life, right? Well, then what's the most important factor for health? And the most important factor for health would be the food that you put in your body. There's just no doubt about that. It's like what goes into your body and on your body, right? So, if you're putting cosmetics on the body, well, the body is literally eating those as well through the skin, right? Through the epidermis of the skin as well, the dermal layer. So, again, why is this important? Well, if we know that diet either improves your health and longevity or decreases it, then when we do know that, then we need to understand, well, what diet helps the most? And that's the Mediterranean diet. So this particular diet had the greatest improvement in protection against diseases, is a direct quote, such as heart disease, metabolic syndrome, cancer, diabetes, IBD, which is inflammatory bowel disease, cognitive impairment of the brain, and arthritis. And that's because it helps to control overall inflammation. The Mediterranean diet is known as the anti-cancer diet or the anti-inflammatory diet. It's one of the most potent anti-inflammatory diets in the world. Part of it is because of the monounsaturated fats, which I will talk about in just a moment, but it's also been shown in blood work to decrease what's called tumor necrosis factor, TNF-alpha, and it's been shown to decrease, decrease if I didn't say decrease, lower, right, TNF-alpha, as well as nuclear factor kappa B as well, so NF-kB. So all of these are really important markers. It lowers CRP in the body. And one more thing I just want to share with you, just again, I want to try to impress upon you how important this really is. Because if you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, even maybe your early 50s right now, you might not be thinking like, oh, well, it's not that big a deal for me. Trust me, the body is building disease or health every single time you have a meal. It's that important. It really is. And that's why people that are following a super high fat diet, and again, not the right fats, or a super high protein diet, what's happening is that they might be transforming their body. They might be getting the look of the body that they want, but they are sacrificing long-term health. And you're really, and again, if you feel good in this moment, great, but you're really playing roulette with your life. I mean, I really feel that way. And again, I have nothing to gain from offering you this information. I just know that based on all of the research that we have, as well as looking back to Ayurvedic medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, it's all recommending these same types of factors. Again, the food variation may differ slightly based on the locale in the world, but for sure, the philosophy does not. So just a couple more points, and we're going to get right into the diet. This particular diet, Mediterranean diet, was shown when we look at, again, 56 different trials. So this is a meta-analysis of 56 essentially different studies. It found that the Mediterranean diet was the most effective for helping with healthy levels of blood sugar in individuals with type 2 diabetes. So again, if you're looking for the diet, you would say, oh, well, no, a keto diet is best at that. Again, I've done a show on why carbohydrates are not creating diabetes. We have to understand that. We have to really begin to understand cell membrane dynamics and how the pancreas actually works, like how our body functions. Because people have been eating carbohydrates since the beginning of time, and people are like, well, no, they're surviving on meat. People were not surviving on meat. Again, like that is a fallacy that people are surviving on meat, because you would think that meat was that plentiful. But again, if you're a hunter and you know that if you were to go out in the wilderness and you were to go out with maybe just a spear, or maybe just your hands, or maybe just a rock and not a rifle, or not even like a higher powered compound bow or something, the likelihood that you get anything of any great value, meaning like sustaining for weeks or months, would be very low. And again, most people, hunters will tell you that. I've had conversations with hunters. I'm not a hunter myself, but I certainly have spoken with many, many hunters. And again, I have no problem with ethical hunting, but again, that's a topic for another day. But people go to the supermarket or wherever they want, and they pick up, all the meat they want, and they don't understand that would not be, that's not true of how humans would have lived over hundreds of thousands and millions of years ago, which it would have been much, much more difficult to procure. And it's just a level, it's just a total quantity. So again, I'm not against meat, but if some meat is good, 2 pounds, 3 pounds a day isn't necessarily better. And we'll get through the diet and that as well. So the last part is just fertility. So again, I just want to share with you that this diet, because of its anti-inflammatory nature and its very balancing nature, and I would say nourishing nature, the Mediterranean diet increased the likelihood of actually becoming pregnant by 40% plus in women, which is very, very impressive, right? So women doing IVF, they were put on multiple different diets. This was essentially a 40% plus increase. I mean, that's again, amazing. All right, so let's get into it now. What is the modified Mediterranean diet that I'm gonna share with you here today? Well, Michael Pollan, in one of his books, and I apologize that I can't remember the book right now, but I do remember the quote, very, very small book. He basically had 3 steps at the end of the book. He said this, he's like, listen, we need to eat food, not too much, and mostly green. I'm pretty sure it was a quote. I apologize if it's not the exact quote, but I believe it is. Now, I would say I completely agree with Michael Pollan. I think we've gotten a little out of control with diets, and that's why I'm not big on super restrictive diets. I'm big on focusing on healthy foods. The only thing I would differ on is maybe the mostly green. I would say a rainbow, right? Mostly a rainbow is the only thing I would change with that, because overall, we need to eat food. We don't want to overeat. That's the number one thing, right? So even if we weren't eating the healthiest foods, if we were to undereat on a daily basis on not the healthiest foods, and we did an intermittent fast with that, our bodies would certainly be healthier overall. Now, again, but the thing is, it's always, it's balancing that line of not that surplus. That's essentially what we're looking at. Again, not what I'm recommending on healthy foods, because people will quote me on that, but a rainbow of colors. And the rainbow of colors, as you're going to see in the Mediterranean diet, is what gives it its anti-inflammatory and anti-cancer ability. The only thing that we know of in the world to help promote an anti-cancer environment in our body, as well as an anti-inflammatory environment in our body, are mainly fruits and vegetables. Okay, so that is brightly colored fruits and vegetables, and that is because the pigments in those are the antioxidants, the proanthocyanins. They are the different phytonutrients and phytochemicals that people call sometimes plant toxins and all these different things. We have to understand is that there are levels to this. It's nuance. We're not talking about eating unripe fruit or things like that, but we have to understand that these are the same exact things that are helping to prevent cancer. And I say that again because I understand that people are at different levels with their study and research and what it might go into, but also we have to go into this with an unbiased nature. If we don't, we are never going to come out ahead. So the Mediterranean diet gets its bulk of calories from high fiber foods. And again, high fiber foods, you would have never thought even a decade ago that this would set people off, but it is. And that's because they think that some people don't believe that the human microbiome is meant to get fiber, which is, again, insane when you look at how the digestive tract is built. You have to, I can't get into all of this here today because I would go off on a giant tangent, and I've done seminars on this, but you wouldn't have 21 feet of small intestinal tract and about 5-6 feet of colon if it wasn't meant to get plant-based food and an omnivore-based diet. You just wouldn't. You would not have a digestive tract that long. You would have a carnivore's digestive tract, and you can look up the physiology of all these different things in nature. So just because we can eat those foods doesn't mean that we should necessarily eat those foods to such a large quantity. We don't have the level of stomach acid. We don't have the short digestive tract. We have a long, easily fermentable digestive tract, which enables us to break down higher fiber foods. And guess what? Those higher fiber foods also influence the gut microbiome and bacteria, which influences our overall immune system, our inflammation, our mind, our health, and much more. So high fiber foods, where are those coming from? Well, those are the carbohydrates, right? So they're coming from vegetables, And your vegetables, honestly, sky is the limit. So you can have your vegetables as beets and carrots, and it could be lettuces, like whatever you want. Those are basically your vegetables. Lots of colorful vegetables, your choice. So that's why the Mediterranean diet, not only has it been shown to be the best anti-cancer diet out there, best anti-inflammatory diet, it's also been called and voted one of the easiest to follow. Your choice of vegetables, okay? The other part is fruit, right? Brightly colored, typically lower glycemic berries and fruit. So yes, you can have an apple, you can have your blackberries, blueberries, raspberries, all of those things are acceptable. Typically, we're not doing more of the exotic fruit like maybe papayas and mangoes. I still have some of those in my diet, but you want to look at the brightly colored fruit. And again, lower glycemic, especially if you're someone typically with higher blood sugar levels. But again, there is not a good correlation between fruit and diabetes. Now, once your blood sugar is dysregulated, that's a whole different story, but that's dysregulation in the first place. Okay. Now, I'll talk about what I'm omitting in a second, but for my modified Mediterranean diet, I'm recommending, if your body can handle it, gluten-free grains. Not everybody does well with grains. So for people that we have on our sensitive gut protocol, or it's called our CBO protocol, we will omit grains for at least the first 3 to 4 weeks. If you don't have an issue with that, typically gluten-free oats or some gluten-free rice, and the rice can be wild rice, it can be black rice, it can be different things like that. Some people tolerate it just fine, and some people do okay with millet as well. We don't do a lot of grains. Some people do okay with quinoa. We don't do a lot of grains on our plans. I don't do a lot of grains personally. I will have some rice. I will have some oats. That's typically what I have in my diet if I have some grains. Those, again, have been proven to help with cholesterol, blood pressure, etc. And of course, I'm talking about oxidized cholesterol. Now, so if you're not eating grains, what might you be having for starches if you're someone that wants to add some more starch because you're more active or you lose weight more easily, etc.? Well, in this case, you may decide to do some of the things that I choose to do, which is cassava or yucca, or Japanese yams, or Okinawan purple potatoes, things like that are absolutely fantastic. So all of those can be great starches and fuel for your body should you need it. Now, the nice thing is, a lot of those, especially like the Japanese yams or the purple potatoes, are, again, much higher in antioxidants and also anti-inflammatory in nature as well. So those are our carbohydrates. You'll notice that we are omitting the breads and pastas that a lot of people think are famous in the Mediterranean diet. Again, I think the Mediterranean diet can be okay with those, but I don't think it's healthier because of those, which is why I'm recommending healthier starches instead. Now, what about fats? Carbs make up the predominance, but what about fats? Well, we want to look at olives and avocados. Those are the two main ones, okay? Olives and avocados. Typically, I recommend people to eat their avocados, right? So they can slice it in half, have a half with lunch, half with dinner, or they could have just a half and split it with someone else, like whatever works for them. And then in terms of olives, not as many people are eating olives, but olive oil in a first pressed, cold pressed, non-oxidized, small, dark bottle can work just fine. And that's been shown over and over to have a very powerful anti-inflammatory and anti-cancer effect on the body. What other fats are recommended on the Mediterranean diet? Really, the only other ones are nuts and seeds. All right. So if I don't eat a lot of nuts and seeds, but if you're someone that can tolerate nuts and seeds well, then walnuts, almonds, macadamia nuts can all be fantastic too. And then seeds are fine as well. So if you do well, pumpkin seeds, great, sunflower seeds, etc., that may work fine for your body. And again, I recommend those in their whole form if possible. And raw if possible, again, and that will help to a greater degree in terms of oxidation. Now, proteins, we are looking at fish, some poultry, like chicken or turkey. We're looking at eggs, which would be pastured, and a little red meat on occasion. That might be like once a week. Now, a lot of people say, well, I eat a ribeye steak for lunch every day or dinner every day. A lot of people might say that. The only issue with that is that is not proven to help with longevity or overall health. It's proven to help maybe with body transformation. It's proven to be high in B vitamins and lots of other nutrients. I'm not denying that. I'm definitely not saying that. What I'm saying is it's not correlated to an anti-cancer diet, longevity diet, or decreasing all-cause mortality. Now, I'm not saying it's going to lead to an earlier death, but I can assure you it's not going to help you live longer. That has not been proven in any way, shape, or form. For some people, it'll be detrimental. For others, it'll have no effect. For some, maybe even it's a little beneficial, right? So we just say, do you know if you fall into that category? That's the issue, right? And it's not about how you feel. Meat will typically make most people with strong or healthy digestion feel a little bit better because they're getting more nutrients into their system. The problem is it's a diet that's very rich, meaning it's overly high in protein and nutrient dense for most people. So unless you have a really good fasting schedule set up and you're doing longer fasts a couple times a month, that may be an issue if you're having red meat on a daily basis. Again, I will let you decide. I'm just trying to present to you the information here. So eggs and red meat are much less often. I would say once a week for red meat, maybe eggs a couple times a week if you are not sensitive to them. For if people who enjoy some dairy, sheep or goat cheese or yogurt would be a much better choice than cow's milk. Cow's milk can be optional if it's in its raw form and you've already done a food sensitivity test from an IgG perspective to make sure you are not sensitive to cow's milk, which is the #1 food sensitivity in children 3 years and adults as well. Children 3 years and older and adults. Beans, there are some beans for sure in a Mediterranean diet. I don't know that there's a lot of dishes with them. Certainly people eat beans. I'm not saying that. There is certainly some hummus dishes used from chickpeas, mixed with garlic, another antioxidant, good sulfur-based nutrient there as well, olive oil, etc. So that can be great. So what do we really do with this Mediterranean diet? Meaning like the Mediterranean diet's already a healthy diet. It's obviously been proven out. People can dispute it if they want, but it's very difficult because the preponderance of evidence shows that it's literally the healthiest diet out there from a foundational level. Do I say, can it be tweaked for individuals? Of course, right? So what did I modify in terms of how I choose to follow the Mediterranean diet and also how I think it can be better for people overall? Well, what I tried to do was cut out cow's milk dairy. Now, I've done that because as a clinical practitioner, I have the benefit of reading tens of thousands of food sensitivity lab tests. And I see from an outside lab, this is not my lab, that from an IgG perspective, which means a delayed immune reaction, that's the immunoglobulin G, 24 hours to 72 hours later, that the vast majority of people have a delayed reaction to cow's milk. That means when they take in cow's milk, they may not have digestive issues. Some do, but that's different. That's a digestive issue. But they get some level of inflammation from it. And that inflammation, again, can lead to a host of issues, autoimmune or any of the top causes of mortality that we spoke about. So there's that, right? There's that digestibility issue, but there's also the inflammatory issue. I also cut out most grains. I've just realized that we specialize in a few things in our practice, and one of those is gut health. A lot of people have an imbalanced gut from alcohol intake or antibiotics or birth control or tap water or poor food combinations, many other issues like that, right? So that can really disrupt the gut. And so we've noticed that since the gut's already inflamed, adding additional grains to it, typically not well tolerated, at least in the beginning. Now, people typically do fine with a little bit of certain types of rice that we recommend and oats, but we typically eliminate those for 3 to 4 weeks anyways, and then we try to add them back in to see if there's any issues. Now, that's totally optional because you can always just do healthier options. In my opinion, a healthier option are the Japanese yams, purple potatoes, and yucca, cassava, etc. So those are all great. So what I also did, one other thing that I removed from the Mediterranean diet was alcohol, right? Red wine is often associated with the benefits of the Mediterranean diet. But really, when you look at it, the alcohol is not contributing to really the improved blood pressure, cholesterol, type 2 diabetes, and cancer that couldn't be improved with overall lifestyle. Meaning that's why exercise and movement should be part of this Mediterranean diet. Relaxation techniques, right? Because if you're using alcohol for stress reduction, because it does work, right? So if you reduce stress, well, then blood pressure can lower, your vascularity can dilate to a greater degree, let better blood flow. But that's not the main reason to use it, right? And you can say, well, it's high in antioxidants. True, but you could also get your antioxidants from eating purple grapes, or you could eat it from eating blackberries and blueberries if you want your, purples in there. So I don't think we can say that. And also, the evidence shows the opposite of that. More than 2 to 3 drinks per week, your risk for cancer goes up. So if we're looking at by the year 2030, 1 in every 2 people getting cancer, I just want people to be careful on the alcohol front. 1 time a week, twice a week maximum, hopefully not back-to-back days, 2 to 3 drinks a week maximum, because after that, your risk for cancer goes up. But even beyond that, if you don't get cancer, just understand that when you do drink alcohol, liver detoxification goes down, glutathione production begins to get used up, your heart rate variability will go down, your deep sleep will go down, body temperature won't decrease at night, immune system will suffer because of it. What else? Not as much deep sleep, not as much REM sleep. All of it's affected. It really is. And again, you can just, I learned this over the years too, with doing biometric based tracking, whether you can use an Oura Ring, Whoop strap, Fitbit, whatever you like to use. So my recommendation on alcohol is, 1, you don't need to drink it to be healthy. That's for sure. You can get your resveratrol from using a product like Cell Boost. You can use, you can get your you get your purple grapes in there if you want for antioxidants, other things. But really, alcohol in a Mediterranean diet, I think a lot of it gets its main benefit from relaxation. And that is enjoying a great meal with friends, with family, with community. So if you're having a glass of alcohol, you may want to do that with friends, family, community once a week or maybe every other week or so. And that might be a fine way to do it. And that's typically how I consume alcohol when I do, is not even what you would call moderation, right? Because who knows what moderation is from one individual to another. But a drink, 2 maximum, once or twice a month, maybe. Again, I know people will drink more than that. So maybe once a week, if you can do it. If you're drinking 5 times a week now, try to take it down to 2, and that'll be a tremendous benefit. Plus, just make sure you're hydrating your body as well, right? So half your body weight in ounces of water per day. Of course, everything is nuanced. That'll go up if you sweat more, if you have higher blood pressure. If you have lower blood pressure, you don't sweat as much. You may or may not drink as much, right? So all of this works. Again, all of this works so much better too if you're moving your body 10,000 steps a day, or at least 7,000. That's been shown, working out a few times a week. And this really is. This is the simple secret that pretty much everyone wants to overlook, because in the end of the day, it's not that exciting, right? It's not that sexy of a diet. It's already been talked about. But that's the thing. I like things that are pretty straightforward, that are fundamentally simple, a little bit boring, and actually easy to follow on a daily basis. I think a lot of the times we try different diets, we try different plans and whatever the latest and new thing is, because we're looking to spice things up. And I get it. I just don't know that our diet should be what we're looking to vary all that much. So my highest recommendation is you rebalance your digestive system so that you can actually eat fruits and vegetables again, that you work on your cell membrane dynamics so that fruits and vegetables and some starches don't overly exaggerate your blood sugar, and that you begin to move your body so that you're able to utilize these good, healthy macronutrients, proteins, fats, and carbs, that you don't overdo your protein. I will link up a diet, I'll link up a podcast as well as the mounting evidence against meat. Again, it's not against meat, it's against too much meat, right? And how there is a lot of evidence actually that shows that it's not meat, but sometimes it's the quantity over a course of years that actually can lead to cancer from the increase in certain hormones. But we'll save that show for another day. So a longer show today. Typically, I try to keep it a little bit more concise, but this is it. Honestly, this is the most powerful anti-cancer and the most powerful anti-inflammatory diet plan in the world. I truly believe that you can manipulate it to suit your needs as best as you'd like, but this truly is the foundation. So hopefully this was helpful. Always feel free to share the show with anyone you believe could serve. Take care, everyone.